Hello, 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 and welcome to finally the season finale recap episode of The Right Reasons. Wow, we have people here already saying hi. Oh my god.
Oh wow, chat is blowing up.
Chat is blowing up.
So,
oof. Yes, 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 yes.
we're gonna go
Thank you, Mama.
We're gonna go on our normal route and recap both the episodes in sequential order. But you know, I'm assuming most of you saw the finale, and let's just say my confidence and enthusiasm to do this part of the episode has been removed.
Yeah, at some point, hi everyone. Thank you for the love. This is so exciting. Honestly, the only part about recapping this episode that I was looking forward to was being here with you all.
Yeah.
Because truly, watching last night made me want to go up to the roof and jump off of it. Not to take my own life, but just to forget... hopefully, get amnesia and forget this entire season and what I witnessed. It was so...
what a waste of my time.
We were going to get dressed up. So if you go back in our other seasons, the finale videos, like for Hannah's finale, we got dressed up.
Yeah. And
I legitimately was like, Kyle... let's just wear pajamas. And I went a little bit better than pajamas, but...
I just kind of went with it, honestly.
Yeah, these are old jazz pants.
Last week, I think, I was in pajamas because I was fighting a cold. Not coronavirus. And just going along with it now. And usually we are at Stand Up New York. Our one time that actually came through to be at Stand Up New York. Who is, a generous sponsor of the show. So due to... schedule issues, we are doing it in our home again.
Yes.
And honestly, actually,
we've heard from a lot of you that you like it better when we're here, so that's interesting.
Yeah, and honestly, one of the main reasons that we didn't want to go out to where the comedy club is today is because we don't want to be on public transit if we don't have to.
It's true.
Due to, living in Manhattan and the coronavirus and all that.
Yes. All right, so we got a lot to cover. I would love to just, before we get started, hear from all of you one word to describe this two-part finale. And while you're at it, make sure that you give this video a thumbs up.
One word to describe this two-part finale.
And share it with your friends. If you're listening to this as a podcast, tell us your word on Instagram or Twitter. We got a Twitter. This is an announcement. We got a Twitter. It is Wright_reasons. Wright_reasons. We got a Twitter. I'm so excited.
Yeah, we didn't think about it too hard before making the name. Is letdown one word or two words?
We can make it one just
because
for this exercise.
My word is letdown.
Yeah, Hallie put cluster. We have, shit show, disappointing, pointless, clusterfuck, disappointing, draining, finasco. Excellent callback.
That's good.
Disastrous, annoying, messy.
Yeah.
These are all
of those are
very accurate. Train wreck. Yeah, it was...
what a fucking waste of our time.
Ooh, mama's boy. Made it one word just for us. Thanks, Kelly. We'll allow it today.
Yeah, we'll allow that.
It's so interesting because I really... generally dislike that term. However, it's hard to not use that in this context. So, okay.
Yeah, we got to get into it. We got a lot to read.
Emily says rude. Yes, it was rude. The whole thing was rude.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So okay. God. And this is what's so hard about a two-part finale where the ending is such a fucking nightmare because I'm looking at my notes from the beginning of the first episode of the finale and I'm like, I don't care. None of this matters.
Right. Well, I think some of it does. So we will do our best to recap in a way that doesn't drive us all more crazy. However, if we skip over something or glance over something that you want to talk more about,
let us know.
Let us know. whether you're here live or watching this later. So the part 1 of the finale starts, and I realized at that moment we're live both nights.
Yeah.
What I kind of had assumed was that we were going to get the pre-recorded portion on the first night, and then a little bit of pre-recorded on the second night, and then live in studio. But there was actually a live studio audience on the first night too.
Yeah, it was different.
Yeah. Someone in the we got more words, so we got crazy, cringeworthy, Barb, just Barb, barbed wire.
Ooh, that's good. That's funny.
Love it, and embarrassing. Yeah.
All right, so we start the episode with Peter looking like shit, walking around Australia, while he voices over how they're in the middle of the outback somewhere, and Peter
Alice
just
Springs is where they are, which I said it's the Palm Desert of Australia. That's what it looked like.
Sure. Just because it was a desert and like that.
Thank you, Jay Jobs.
Sparsely populated desert.
Jay Jobs is our advocate for people giving the video a thumbs up, and I really appreciate it.
So Peter does this weird voiceover where he talks about how the outback is mysterious, and I wrote down mysterious and sexy to him. I think that he was just monologuing for a while about how the outback is mysterious and interesting, and he's thinking about the girls a lot because of it. I don't know. It was so... I appreciate them filming in Australia. Country's been devastated by fires and multiple economic issues.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, really poor choice for production. There are constantly bugs attacking the leads. They're like, hey, we're going to go on a date. Look at it. It's a desert.
Yeah.
There's a big rock in the desert. Guess what? You're in the desert still.
So Pete says that he is confused, which I put down as per the usual.
Yeah, he's confused.
And we see that his family is there. And this is how far we came in the 4 hours of content. This is what I wrote down at the beginning. I love his family. They're so honest and present with him. This is what I wrote down at the beginning of the first episode. He tells them all about both women. And I actually thought that this was actually a highlight for me. The way that Pete, at this point, summarized both relationships was incredibly articulate. I thought that he was accurate. And he described he was very honest with his parents and his brother about what was going on with Madison, how things were with Hannah Ann. In this moment, I liked what Peter was doing.
Absolutely. I think that he was starting out explaining things really well, giving his family the updates, and the honest updates, too. And as a result of his honesty around what's going on with Madison, they seem to become defensive and really hesitant around her in general, and kind of concerned for him because they hear him talking about being a different person than he is. And they also really don't like that she waited a long time to tell him about the whole expectations, sex, fantasy thing.
Yeah.
Which, understandable, because that was exactly where I'm at this point of the show.
Yes. And Barb, at this point, says to Peter, the way that you describe her, referencing Hannah Ann, she says it sounds like you.
Yeah, the way he describes her, she thinks he's describing it like himself.
Yeah.
Which, that's good. That's a good thing, right?
I mean, I don't think it's a good or bad thing, but I do think that the way that he presented it was definitely like this fun-loving, caring person.
So what I really liked about Hannah Ann going into meeting the family is that she had a game plan, and she stuck to it. She's like, all I want to do is make sure they know I love him, and that's it.
However, that's... Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Continue, and then I'll share my take on that.
Well, I mean, really, that's it. She intended fully to go in there, making sure that his family knew what she was about and why she was there. Not who she was, what she was about on the show. Which, frankly, for the amount of time that you're there, I'm actually pretty okay with. Because if you think about the format of the show, let's take real life out of it for a second. Because when you meet someone's parents, you want to... all the stuff about yourself and blah, blah, blah. This is why, this is how I met, all that bullshit. But when you're on The Bachelor, and you've got, maybe 2 hours? We have no idea how long she's with the family.
Yeah.
You've got to stick to what is important, which is making sure that they know you're there for their son, or the lead in this case.
See, I have such an issue with that.
Why?
Because the way that it came off was that his parents cared more about him being loved by any human rather than who the human is. And now there could have been conversation that we did not see, obviously. There was tons of footage that is on the cutting room floor. However, the way that it came off was, we love Hannah Ann because she loves you. Not, we love Hannah Ann because of who she is.
Right. Which is the problem with her tactic in that case, I think.
Right, but I think that it can be an and not an or. Like, she could have gone in and said, and by the way, I am not shitting on Hannah Ann. I thought that she was the highlight of this whole finale. However, in this moment, I wish that she had gone in with, my main goal is to make sure two things: that they know how much I love Peter, and that they know who I am. Instead of just, my one single focus is to make sure that they know I love Peter.
Well, and to piggyback on that, the effectiveness of what Hannah Ann's plan is actually very much telling as to what we see later on in the show with the level of involvement Peter's family has in his life. Because if they're so heavily involved, which we learn, her being there saying, like, I am just here to fulfill this purpose, that's why the family likes her so much, because if you think about how they respond later on to things, it actually fits in. So here's what I didn't like about their time meeting the family. So they're on the couch talking, and I'm going to try to pantomime this for the viewers.
Are you going to cuddle with me?
Yeah, so
they're
sitting normally on the couch, and Peter's like spooning Hannah while they're talking, and she's like trying to talk, and he's like, yeah, she says that. She really likes me. That's what, it's so uncomfortable. He's like on her the entire time. And it's so strange that I don't know what they did in the fantasy suite. They say they're in love with each other. I was a little grossed out by their public display of affection. Wait, hold on. Correction. I was grossed out by Peter's public display of affection. Because he was like a starfish wrapping himself around her on the couch while she's trying to tell the family how much she loves him.
Yes, correct.
To the point where they even asked her, what's your favorite part of being on the show? And she's like, meeting Peter. Okay.
That's what I mean. We don't know anything about, like, we did not get to see her. I just...
mean, to be fair, when I was 23, I didn't have a lot of substance either. So,
I did.
Well, yeah.
And she does. We saw that later.
Well, I'm saying, like, who she is in life and, like, what she does.
Right, but she has had a very successful, like, mainstream modeling career.
Yeah.
They didn't, like, it didn't even come up that we saw what she did for work.
Right.
That's what I mean, is, like, they were like, cool, do you love our son? Great, we like you.
Yeah.
Oh, this other one caused one problem? We don't like her.
Right.
I just, ugh.
So the parents say that, oh, you two remind us of us and blah, blah, blah. However, the mom does share in an ITM that she's concerned Peter falls too hard too fast. Oh, so weird.
Now, there was one really good point that Barb made, and I'm pretty sure that this is the only time I'll say that
I think I know what
in
you're
the
going to
episode.
say. Yeah.
She's talking to Hannah Ann, and she talks about how there is a difference between changing the person that you're with and growing with each other and making each other better. And I actually really liked this distinction, because I think that often things like changing and compromise, the words get tossed around, but not often do we actually go a little bit deeper and talk about the nuance there. And I like how she broke it down, because you do evolve as a person. Like,
Absolutely.
I have changed so much in the time that we have been together.
Yeah,
That is not because you tried to change me.
Yeah.
And that's the distinction, right? Like, we've compromised on things.
Yeah.
I've not compromised who I am.
I mean, I have actively tried to get you to like mushrooms on things. And, like, I'm trying to change you in that way, but I'm not trying to change the fundamentals of who you are as a human being, except for the mushroom thing. You're getting there. You like the flavor of mushrooms, just not on pizza. We'll get there.
Love the flavor of mushrooms. I just don't like the texture.
So, I don't know. It's so hard to recap this part, because the dad is asking Peter, like, hey, do you see anything lacking? And Peter's like, well, I don't really know. And this is the beginning of everybody calling him Bud, which I guess must be the family's like.
What are you conflicted about, Bud?
But then Chris Harrison does it later, and I think that Chris Harrison was doing it to, like, approach him as a friend, like a friendly family member. using the same like dialogue, because I think he is much more emotionally intelligent than we think, and he uses it to manipulate the show as the host. It's, I don't know. Peter just talks about how he's feeling anxious because Hannah's creating no problems, making things easy, and Maddie is creating problems, making things difficult. And I think at this point he's aware that in this situation, easy is good and problems are bad. At the same time, as we've seen, he also thinks that problems are the definition of a good relationship, or problems are something that you need to focus on in a healthy relationship, or that is the substance or fabric of relationships, is challenge.
Yeah.
So in one way, he's being presented with what his apparent dream is, and then he's also being presented with not that, and it's very confusing for him.
So I think additionally what's confusing is I do believe legitimately that he has had deeper feelings for Madison the entire season.
100%.
There is zero question in that. And
No.
I know that there are some people who have said, oh, well, he only picked Maddie because of, the whole thing with his parents, pushing him up, like all of that. I truly think that he wanted to pick her the whole time.
From that very first date.
I mean, maybe, yeah. Like, yeah.
Yeah, from when she met his parents at his house during their vow renewal.
Insane.
Like, who can top that for the rest of the show?
So, essentially, at this point, we as viewers start to see that the narrative that we're being given is that he's far more compatible with Hannah Ann, but he wants to be with Maddie.
Yeah.
That is like clearly where it's going at this point because of how the show framed the whole visit.
So at this point, I wrote down a quick prediction to see how it would play out for later on. I wrote down at this point, I think Peter will pick Maddie and swerve for Hannah Ann later on. That's what my prediction was based on what they've been feeding us at the time of this viewing on finale night 1. How funny is that?
So I want to just address something in the comments. And by the way, thank you I love when people are like, I disagree or I agree. Like, I love the comment section. WL in the comment says, disagree. He wants Maddie because she's unattainable. She's just a conquest. So I would agree with you if she had been like that the whole time. The thing is, he wanted her even before he knew that. And so I really do think that those feelings were there. Like, we go back to even her hometown, right? Like, he didn't know at that point that it was like a challenge or that there was something in between them. And he was clearly the most into her, even then. So while I do definitely agree that there is a level of like, oh, good, there's problems, or, oh, good, I can't have her, so now I'm going to want that more.
Right.
For sure. I really do think that he wanted her the whole time.
Yeah, I agree. So, we now have Madison coming to meet the family. And they both don't look good going into this. They both look very shut down. And they sit down to have a little powwow, because obviously things aren't good between the two of them before they meet the family. And then he asks, how are you? And she says, not good. Wow, okay, getting off to a good start. And then...
Oh, she says to him...
Yeah, go ahead.
This was actually the point that I liked Maddie the least in the whole episode. Like, in the whole 4 hours of content, this conversation was the hardest for me to be on Maddie's support system train.
I also thought Peter was almost at his best during this conversation.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I also think that, this general consensus in the chat here about Peter not really knowing what he wants, I also agree with that.
Yeah,
it just was very clear that out of not knowing what he wants, he knew that he wanted Maddie a little more.
More than, yeah.
At this point in the conversation, Maddie says to him, this is your journey and you're a big boy.
That's so patronizing.
It felt incredibly patronizing to me. I don't think she meant it that way. I really don't, but it came off that way.
It sounded like she's wounded and lashing out.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that sounded like.
And then she said, you put your feelings and your wants above mine, and that was really hurtful.
When she said that, I typed in all caps on my phone, yeah, he's the Bachelor. So,
two sides to this.
Yeah.
Right? it is so vastly important for us as individuals to put our own needs first.
Yes.
The majority of the time.
Yes.
And that doesn't take away from the fact that doing so has a ripple effect, has a consequence, has an outcome.
Mm-hmm.
So, and she articulated this much better later on their date. She is upset because of his choices. And that's okay.
Yeah.
She is allowed to be upset and to feel whatever she feels. He is also allowed to put himself first.
Right.
Because they're not first of all, even if they were in a committed relationship, he's still allowed to put himself first. We have to put our own oxygen masks on first.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that this was just a complicated comment, especially following the big boy comment.
Right. And my biggest challenge is, what on earth did she think was going to happen? Everybody jumps on Hannah Ann for saying that she's on there just for Instagram fame and to get like a career after this or whatever. But what's Madison doing? If she knows this about herself, that she would not want her partner to be intimate with other people within a certain time frame before they're together, why is she on the show? Is she intentionally blinding herself to something she knows will happen? Does she think she's able to convince him beforehand to change who he is
Are you talking about Madison?
on the show? Yeah.
Okay.
Because anyone can throw shade at Hannah Ann for whatever reason they think that she was actually there for. Maybe not the right reason. However, what's Madison there for? If she's this upset over the actual format of the show and the lead doing what is their own prerogative to do. That's my question here. Why is she there if she knows this is going to happen, knows this is a problem, and then is just surprised that the expected problem exists?
Yeah, to me, I experience Peter as somebody who is very comfortable having multiple relationships. Yeah. And whether or not that is how he's wired as a person, or if that is just the stage of life that he's in, mm-hmm. he does not come across to me as somebody who is ready or willing to have and commit to and work on a monogamous long-term relationship.
Yes.
I don't see it.
This whole time I had very much the reaction to Madison going outside when it's raining and then being surprised when she gets wet. Like, okay, you knew this was going to be an issue.
Right. And, Heather in the chat here says, the hardest for me was watching Madison squirm away from Peter, not wanting to let him kiss her.
That was weird.
Especially after telling him that she loved him.
Yeah.
So no wonder Peter is confused. There's major conflicting signals. Right.
So they get into their conversation, and this is something that I really appreciated. This is one of my main things that I really appreciated from Peter. She's putting all this on him about her expectations and wants and how she has standards that she doesn't want to blah, blah, blah. And he kind of stops her for a second and says, you know that I'm in relationships with other people. Because she's talking about how, yes, he's the lead, but she's also has her own thing. And he's like, yeah, so does the other people. Don't forget that you're not the only person here. And I really appreciated that because that's a great reality check from him. Like, hold on, if you're talking about how I need to respect your shit, what about you respecting hers? Because we're all in this together.
Yeah, and I think that both need to be true. Like,
absolutely.
Peter at no point disrespected Madison's choice for herself.
Yeah.
Right? He never
He's so understanding of it.
Yeah. Incredibly. And even in the conversation that we'll get to between Peter and his brother, Jack asks him, like, flat out, would you be okay not having sex until you're married? And while Peter definitely, like, takes a minute to be like, yeah. And I was like, that's a no. And I do think that, like, he could do that if he wanted to.
Yeah.
He never judged Madison for her decision for herself. The challenging part was her asking him to change his behavior and his experience. Yeah, okay, let's get back to it.
Well, so he tells her, which I really appreciated also, he's like, I've been right in your position on the show. Like, remember that? I was exactly where you are on this show. Mm-hmm. Because this entire time, she's been basically dumping on him all of her shit this entire conversation. He's starting to get a little fed up, I think, in this conversation. And she says, I'm hanging on by a thread, and I need to feel confident and sure and at peace, and I don't feel that.
And she keeps saying, if I'm just being honest.
Put an asterisk on that, because of my own actions.
Right, and that's the thing, is you have to wonder, and I was wondering this the whole time, if Madison had told Peter about this earlier in the season, what would that have changed? How would this have gone differently?
Yeah.
How would their relationship be different? How would the family stuff had gone differently? I just wonder.
And this is now the end of any helpful, constructive, or frankly intelligent conversation for the rest of the finale. This is the very end of it right here. From now on, it is a downhill slide for the entirety of the show.
I mean, I did not think that it could get much worse after the part 1 finale. And then last night, I was like, at one point, you guys, I literally tossed my phone onto the table and I was like,
So I wrote down this really quickly as we were recapping this, because Madison's just been dumping on Peter, and he's like, hold on, you're just being upset. Here's the timeline.
Oh, and then I have a comment to respond to in the chat.
Just really quickly.
Yeah, no, yeah.
She told Peter at the hangar that she has some vague expectations around what's next. Never says what it is. The fantasy suites happen, and she tells Hannah Ann what she expects fully, that Peter doesn't know. And Hannah Ann's like, what? We see her do the in the moment interview where she's like, she wants what? Then she tells him, after he's already had 2 fantasy suite dates, what she expects from him and from a partner. He's honest with her, which was very difficult, I think. Then she feels betrayed for something he couldn't have possibly known because she didn't tell him.
Well, she vaguely told him.
She vaguely told him, but when it's this
important, she basically said
you,
it would be hard.
When it's this important to you, you better say what it means, because then she shuts down and holds it over his head forever. That's the timeline here. So when Madison is being upset in this moment of the show, let's keep in mind, just this moment of the conversation outside of Peter's parents' house in Australia, she is kind of ignoring her own responsibility in this, almost entirely.
Yeah.
So then they meet the family, and it's a fucking train wreck.
So I want to address a couple comments in the chat and just engage in this conversation happening. This discussion is like hot and fiery, and I fucking love it. So Emily says, Madison can have her values and expectation. That doesn't make her self-centered or sheltered. I agree with you, Emily. I think that it is not self-centered to have boundaries and desires and wants. I also don't think that it's necessarily a wonderful thing. I don't think it's a good thing to equate religion with being sheltered.
Yeah.
I don't love that comparison. So I don't think Madison is sheltered at all. I think that she has made choices for herself based on the information that she has had in the world. And for us to all just have witnessed her on a edited reality show and to decide that she was sheltered, I don't think is appropriate. So I agree with that comment.
Well, additionally, let's think about it for a second. She's 23, ex-college basketball player from Alabama. The amount of life experience she's had is minimal compared to even Peters, who's only a few years older than her. But as a pilot, traveling constantly, he's had more experience in life than he has. So while not sheltered, she may have had a reduced amount of life experience at this point in her life.
Absolutely.
Especially being 23.
But that's not a judgment.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I think it's more of a reality.
And then WL says, Maddie has higher standards than most people. Agree with it or not?
Different
So
standards.
I don't like the higher or lower thing, because then we're getting into value and like saying that someone who chooses to have sex before marriage has lower values than someone who doesn't. And I don't love that. I think that somebody who chooses to have sex before marriage and someone who chooses not to are on equal playing fields.
Right.
They have different expectations, different standards, right? There's no good, bad, right, wrong.
Right. Well, and that's always my argument with all of organized religion. Yeah, do your thing. Whatever makes you happy, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else, go for it. But when you expect others to adhere to your view of what values are, then that's the problem. And that's what's currently happening on the show, because someone's being held to a standard that they weren't aware they were being held to fully.
Yeah, and then Pia says in the chat, and I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that. Let me know if I'm pronouncing that right. It's Piya. Pia? Yeah. The entire problem for this entire show has been conversation, more so the lack of it. 100%.
Totally.
100%.
Totally.
And okay, perfect. I'm just checking. Okay, beautiful.
Right.
I wanted to acknowledge that because I don't think that it's fair to say that someone who has chosen to save themselves for marriage in a sexual way, it has any more or less value than someone who hasn't.
Right.
I don't like that becomes a this or that or better or worse. I think that they're just different. They're different choices. And I don't like the people who are villainizing Maddie for that. And I don't like the people who are villainizing Peter.
Right.
Like, they're just different.
They're not hurting anybody with their differences. The problem in this case is that there's conflict because of the expecting someone to adhere to your value system without fully explaining what that is.
Correct. And there's no right or wrong when it comes to your own choices for your own body.
Right.
There is what is best for you, period.
Right. Which was challenging, and all of this is challenging for me because she talked about how she would be fine with it if a partner of hers had been into it before. She's upset about the timeline of it. So that's my problem with her complaining about it, because you know what the show is.
And that's what's challenging.
Right.
That is the challenging piece.
What is it? Is it like a 3-month timeline? Do you need like a no sex for 90 days before you're willing to like be around this person? Like, what's the time? It's so confusing. So
yeah, I have a lot of empathy and compassion, honestly, for everybody involved in this situation. Because by the end of this, you've been so socially isolated. Like, think about you guys having 2 months of not having any other interaction than with production and the other contestants in lead of the show.
Neither of those people are your friends either.
No phones, no computers, no nothing.
So let's get back to it. One last note of how they're interacting before they meet the family is that Peter keeps offering to move on and see if they can grow through this and like get to the next thing and see if we can connect.
Thanks, WL.
And she just keeps bringing up all the negative stuff, and then eventually she tells him that she loves him. And he turns into a golden retriever on the spot. He can't stop smiling. He's like, this smile's not going to go away. This smile's not going to go away. You told me that now. I got what I want. I got what I want. I have the candy now. He's a little kid with candy. He's a golden retriever with a ball. He has what his life is missing, is that one thing. And then, as the chat pointed out, he tries to kiss her, and she refuses, and it's really, really fucking awkward.
So I just need to call this out in the chat. There is not hate allowed here. So those of you who are hating against religion, please don't do that. Those of you who are then fighting that, like, we don't need to villainize anyone here. Yeah. Nobody did anything malicious here. Peter, if anything, Peter's the bad guy in this situation, and it's honestly, we'll get to it. We'll get to that part of it. Please stop attacking. Please stop attacking each other in the chat. No. This is not what we're here to do. Just, no. Yeah. 83 of you are, and I love the interaction, and we can disagree and have conflict and talk about it, and that we love that shit, but no hate chat. No making Madison a villain for being religious. That is no. And
in fact, she had probably one of the, she's like one of the most religious people that's been on the show. And when she outlined what she was looking for to Peter, is probably one of the more accepting of other people's lives. Because, I mean, you can really think about it. Like, Peter's not fit into the zeitgeist of a super Christian person. He just doesn't. And yet she was still open to having someone else who lives a different life come into hers and finding an understanding there. Whether or not I think it's a good idea doesn't matter, but she was willing to do it. And so, if anything, she's probably the most flexible Christian I've seen at her, I don't know, like level of Christianity? Like, I don't know what level, how do you measure this?
Right, like still, the way that she engages.
All right. So, well, I mean, shit. Madison joins the family, and it's a fucking nightmare. The family's super closed off, and they ask what's going on after they had a long talk.
And I didn't like that. So, I did not like the fact that the family went into this already, like, bleh. they needed to give her, regardless of what their own personal thoughts were on it, get to know the person. Like, I did not like this, and I felt that the dad and brother were a bit more open. Barb went into that meeting with her mind made up already.
Oh, yeah.
And I would have been, if I had been in Peter's shoes or Maddie's shoes, I would have been really, 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 really... Yeah.
And
by the way, some of the comments you guys pop up on here and then they disappear on YouTube if somebody reports them. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, I don't want to repeat what I saw. It might have just gotten tagged down.
Yeah, YouTube's algorithm has been deleting stuff quickly. We noticed that on the last video we did. We had some people commenting some, some oddities, perhaps. And they got removed really quickly to the point where we couldn't actually see them again. It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
YouTube's algorithm has been trying to fight against the amount of hate that goes on YouTube, because I think we can all agree that comment sections are usually a nightmare.
Ours are great. We love you.
So the whole family thing was terrible, because the family basically makes her reiterate what she had already had to struggle with telling Peter, that she would have a problem if he slept with anybody else. And great for Peter's family being so open and available to talk about sex and sexuality. They don't know her. And I feel like putting her on the spot in that way is pretty disrespectful, because it just is. I mean, she didn't... I don't know.
There was a way of asking her that same question without it seeming as though she was being interrogated.
Yes.
Right? Like, the things where the questions came from were very valid. It was... There's a difference in your level of religion and faith and practice. Yeah. There are differences in your lifestyle and your day-to-day living. There are differences in your sexuality and the life that you live sexually.
Yeah.
Let's discuss those, which in theory is completely fine.
Yeah.
Right?
But they talked about, what's with the roadblock? Let's talk about the roadblock.
Correct.
That's how they phrased it.
So immediately, if one person attacks another person, it is 100% a normal human reaction to then defend. And I actually thought that Madison held her own with Barb. She was like, listen, this is my experience also. Yeah. And whether or not his parents necessarily agree with Madison's choices doesn't matter. They can point out the differences to Peter. They can investigate, and maybe investigate's the wrong word. It sounds like there's an interrogation. They can look further into those differences to understand Madison. But the way that they were doing it was like, we're going to prove why this person isn't good for you. It wasn't, let's see. It was
pretty rude, because, she talks about all the challenges, and then she says, I love him, and I'm doing my best in the situation. And the family just doesn't respond to that. It was really strange. She says, I'm doing my best. It's been hard. I love Peter, but I'm doing my best. And the family just sort of stares, like, okay. So, Dad has a strained conversation with her. It's kind of uncomfortable. What I like the most is Peter talking with his brother, where his brother's like, are you sure? Like, you, right? You know who you are. Are you sure you can wait until marriage to have sex? And I wrote down something tells me there's a backstory to this. But honestly, I loved that level of questioning from his brother is so refreshing, because we're getting a glimpse into who Peter really is in that way.
Yes.
Because, he's been kind of happy-go-lucky and kind of an idiot so far in this season. But that is very indicative of who he is. When his brother's like, you don't go to church. You go out when you get back from flying. What you do is different than what you say you're going to do. And I want to make sure what you're saying you're going to do is different than what you're doing now.
And that was a beautiful way of pointing out and asking about the differences. Now, Peter's response was incredibly defensive.
Very.
Which tells me from a self-awareness, psychological level, that he's not at peace with that decision, right? Well, we're at peace with our decisions. Like, if you were to be like, Rachel, why are you wearing your hair half up? If I was uncomfortable with wearing my hair like this, I'd be like, I I ran out of time and I was busy, okay? Right? Like, I would snap back.
Yeah.
But if you said, Rachel, why are you wearing your hair up? I'd be like, oh, well, I accidentally left it up in a wet thing last night, and so I couldn't wear it down, and there wasn't enough time to do anything with it.
Right. It's all in
It's
how
like
you
a
respond.
calm response
Right.
because I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah, you're not worried about what is being done or said.
And to that point, Pia in the chat says, Barb did this throughout the entire 2 parts. She makes valid points about Peter and Maddie's relationship, but she frames it as an attack, and it comes off terribly.
Yeah.
Terribly. And yes, while defensiveness can come from guilt, absolutely, a lot of times it comes off, or it happens when we're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So whether that is guilt or not really knowing or not feeling at peace with something's not in alignment with who we are, or we're feeling attacked, then we'll get defensive.
Yeah. So we get a sit down between Madison and Barb. Although, hold on. There's one more comment from the brother. So Peter's brother is basically explaining to him that Hannah Ann has no issues, and then he sees a red flag with Maddie. And that's all he's trying to say. And Peter is responding very defensively. So the mom sits down with Maddie, and this starts out well. The first part of this was good, in my opinion. She says, you're very religious. Peter's very spiritual. I want to know if you can be with somebody at a different level of faith than you. That is a great question and an astute observation of the situation.
Except for she kept then talking and didn't let her answer.
I am not there yet.
I know.
She said that, which was good. And then Barb continues to say that you can't tell someone else what to do or have and tell them basically how to live their life. And then she talks about how they have such different values in life. And we get a quick in the moment from Madison realizing how different and incompatible they are. It's like the veil has been pulled off of her eyes and she's finally been given permission to feel and know what she's been sensing ever since the fantasy suite date.
Yeah.
All of a sudden she's like, wait, hold on. I'm upset for what happened in the fantasy suites, which is legitimate for me. He was legitimate for doing what he did in the fantasy suites. Oh, we're not supposed to be together. Like, we have fundamentally different views on life. And as fun as this process has been...
And as much as I love this person...
You see her all of a sudden like, oh shit, yeah. Like, you know those moments where you realize something? Like, kind of your come to, like... It's like the come to Jesus moment with yourself. You're like, oh, that's what...
Yeah.
That's her moment in the interview, which is great.
Yes. And... Yeah.
I mean, he's so into her and she knows they're not going to work in this moment.
And... okay. So this is when it starts to get like really messy. Like
crying.
if it hasn't gotten messy yet. If it hasn't gotten messy yet. So at this point, Maddie goes to leave and you can almost see her checking out of the relationship. And frankly, after that, like, who wouldn't?
Is leave the right word or escape?
Yeah, right? I know.
I think she's escaping the family at this point.
Let me just answer. There are a couple of questions that before we get to this next part. I do want to address, there was a comment in the chat that says the mom should talk about how Peter is a sex addict. So
What?
I worked with sex addicts at a clinic for a very long time. Peter is not a sex addict from anything that we have seen or know about him. That is, that's kind of like tossing out like, oh, that person's an alcoholic.
Yeah.
No, he's not a sex addict.
If he was a sex addict, he would have had sex with, what was it, Kelsey? Came to his hotel room?
No, but that's also not what...
Right.
There are a lot of myths and misconceptions around what sex addiction is, and I just wanted to address the fact that Peter is not that. Yes, okay. Oh, there was a question about the waiting for 3 hours that we found out later.
Yeah.
And the question was basically like, would you have also been pissed if you had been waiting and she came in?
I would be annoyed that I was waiting so long. I would also be aware that I'm on a television show that is wildly unscripted in the moment and open to consistent manipulation by production in the moment. And you're still dealing with people who are having an incredibly challenging emotional journey, who are prone to rash actions. So, yes, if you're sitting there for 3 hours and something's not happening, you can be concerned. I would not blame somebody for that. If anything, blame Peter for that.
Yeah,
It's not Madison's fault.
I didn't think that it was fair for Barb to expect an apology from Madison.
Yeah, how about from Peter?
Like, he said we needed to talk about some stuff outside when they walked in.
Yeah.
And also, they probably don't even know how long they were out there. Like,
right.
They don't have phones.
Right.
How do you know how it's like being in a casino? You're like, I don't know, is it 8 a.m.? Is it 1 a.m.? Like,
well, and how many times have we heard on the show that, like, you don't know how long the girls are left sitting somewhere? Like, if someone's being told, okay, wait in this room, Peter's going to join you, or so-and-so's going to join you for, like, a conversation, often they're left there for, like, an hour on their own.
And Andy, this is such a good point. Andy says if she's going to complain about the 3 hours, her own son didn't even go into Victoria Fuller's house.
Yeah.
Right. Like, there's no way of us knowing, of them knowing exactly what happened or why there was a delay. So to bring that up later is such a...
So Peter walks Madison to the car while he's so happy-go-lucky, and you can see her slowly freezing over and removing herself mentally from the moment. Peter comes back to his mom. Peter comes back to his mom crying, and it's super confusing and jarring. And way to put more pressure on this guy who's shared with you how difficult his journey's been.
Yes.
Let's just think about that for a sec.
And Emily asked me a question, but we're just about to get to that part, so Emily, I will answer it in just a second.
So the mom just starts out by calling him Bud a lot. She says, she's not there for you. I have to tell you something. I prayed for you to have the person for you in your life, and she's not it. Hannah Ann is it. I think Hannah Ann's person. So we figure out the whole, like, God thing is about Hannah. Surprise, I guess. I thought it was about Kelly. I was going to be really excited if it was Kelly, because literally she was placed in front of him by, call it what you will, God, universe, like, existence, literally. Anyway. And the mom says the thing from The Bachelor that I can't stand. She knows it in her heart. That's stupid. If someone's going to tell me something they're really passionate about, know it in your head, where your thoughts live. You can't know something in your heart.
That I've used that expression before. I've said, like, I know it in my heart, I know it in my bones, I know it in my gut, I know it in my...
Yes, I feel like we've heard I know it in my heart so much on this particular season that I'm so exhausted.
Are you thinking about the expression on your heart, which is that is a more of a religious, like, something was on your heart?
Maybe. I feel like we've seen Hannah Ann do it. It was like, I know my heart, and I'm sharing my heart. Victoria P said it. Victoria F said it. Madison's been saying it. There's been a lot of, my heart knows that. Okay. It's odd. And when the mom said it, I'm like, are you just listening to what everyone else says and copying it to fit into The Bachelor's, like, room for dialogue?
Interesting.
Anyway.
So it's at this point where Barb starts crying a lot when they're sitting down. And it was kind of in this moment where I had my glass shatter moment where I was like, oh, this is why Peter kept every girl who would cry. Because he grew up with this. I do not believe that in the moment that they were in Australia, that Barb was trying to be manipulative or malicious. I do not believe that. Different story for when they were filming live in LA, and we will get to that. While they were in Australia, I think her actions were manipulative. I don't think that she realized then that it is. And I don't know her. She could be a total psychopath. Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But from what we saw of her in Australia, her actions were manipulative. I don't think she was attempting to manipulate. I think that she saw her son in love with someone who she truly thought was incompatible.
Yeah.
So, again, we will get to the after the final rose thing as we continue through the recap. Right now, we're in Australia. It's the first time Barb has cried. And in this exact moment, I don't think that there was hate there.
No, I agree with you.
I do think that it manifested into that. And then fucking... blah. But it became so clear why Peter was easily manipulated by tears the whole season.
Oh, completely.
Because he's literally manipulated by tears. Like, so, yeah. That's my answer for that exact moment. Yeah. My answer changes as the 4 hours go on.
We get Barb saying Maddie's a sweet girl, but Hannah Ann is a literal angel. Okay.
Pia nails it in the chat. Pia says, Peter has an anxious attachment style that comes from his mom's behavior. If you guys don't know what anxious attachment style is, Google it. We could do a whole podcast on attachment styles. Love it. Thank you for bringing it up. Pia says, I'm hesitant to call her manipulative, but it shows why he rewards drama and tears because he's derived that attachment style.
Completely.
Bingo. Spot
on. Okay, so we get to Peter talking to the family now that Barb's crying has temporarily subsided. They ask him where he's at, and he says in a very unhappy way that he's crazy about Maddie. And I appreciated what the dad said in this, because I feel like this is a pretty rational response from his dad. He says, are you willing to risk something that, in your words, is so perfect, referring to Hannah Ann, just to hope that something else might materialize with Maddie? So the dad is like, hey, you said A is perfect, and you're saying that you'd actually give up perfect to risk B not working out.
Right.
Which, that's a pretty rational argument, and neither decision is wrong, because sometimes putting yourself out there to risk something not going well is the thing you need to do to really make yourself happy, or to do the thing that you really want to do. Sometimes there is a risk involved. Going right for the perfect answer, the thing that is, in quotes, easy, not calling Hannah Ann easy, but she is making the show easy for him.
Right, the process, yeah.
If he were to choose her, she's making it very easy. Sometimes that doesn't create this challenge that you need to truly do the thing that you want to do. So I understand what the dad's saying that, and I thought it was a great thing to ask.
And now here's the first moment where I found Barb to be manipulative. Barb draws a parallel between Jed and Madison.
Oh, this was brutal.
And Peter and Hannah Ann.
Oh, this was brutal, but it was so good.
So the reason why this, in my opinion, both like personally and professionally, was manipulative is this was not her with the potential excuse of, I'm just showing my emotions, I'm just really passionate, right? This was her talking.
Yeah.
She was just talking. And she knows how insecure Peter felt about how his season went with Hannah Brown. For her to basically say, you know how Hannah didn't pick you and you were clearly the right choice? That's Hannah Ann. You know how she picked the person that they're not together anymore and was a fucking liar and had the girlfriend at home and came on the show for his musical career? That's Maddie. And I was like,
that's so...
Holy shit. I literally, you guys, I paused it. I paused the show and I just sat there with my mouth open.
Yeah.
I could not. This to me was the most manipulative thing that happened the entire episode, because she knew how sensitive Peter is to his experience with Hannah Brown.
And it's not just Barb in this. The whole family was behind that statement. However,
lost my mind.
Yes, manipulative. Absolutely. I can also see a family seeing someone that's a member of their family doing something that is so drastically against who they've known this person to be for his entire life. Doing something that is what they see as a life-challenging risk.
I get that.
And using something that is so powerful to try to show him what they're seeing, I understand why they did it. It is still so unhealthy.
But they didn't. It's not an accurate.
Right.
If they were trying to show him what they were seeing, that is not an accurate comparison.
Oh, no. Not at all.
Like, there was nothing about Jed and Hannah that was incompatible, aside from the fact that he's a douche. Right? Like, it's not...
Right.
It's not the same thing.
Right.
She just literally used his heartbreak to try to manipulate him.
Right.
In that moment. And that was not okay with me.
So, in this moment, it's really challenging because he says, you don't know the Maddie I know, which is true. They're also saying, hey, she seems nice, but this one decision she made is indicative of other problems that's going to happen. So, they have the 30,000-foot point of view saying that, hold on, if nothing else mattered, that right there is a problem that you probably would have, like, you'd end the relationship over this, were it not for everything else. And he says, no, but for everything else, that's why I'm okay with it. And
wait, to clarify, when you say ending the relationship over this, what I believe that you're referring to is how long she waited to talk to him, and then the fact that she was so upset about it.
Yes.
Okay.
It's that decision and how she approached the withholding of information that was so drastically important to her until it was too late, and then having the emotional response to it that she had, and putting a lot of her pain onto Peter. That right there, had anything else not mattered, the family's like, that's a relationship ending problem right there. That's a person that we wouldn't want you to be with. And I think you wouldn't want that either if you saw it our way. And he's saying, I understand that. If you saw it my way, you'd see why that doesn't bother me. And so in this case, they're both correct. They both go about it poorly and explaining it to each other.
Yes.
They're terrible at it. And they're both right in this case. And so I had so much empathy in that moment because I can see exactly what's going on both sides.
Correct. And this is where Peter starts to stand up to her. And he says, you gotta stop doing this to me. Mm-hmm. Please don't do this to me.
The don't let her go thing.
Yeah.
We get that finally. And
so then we cut to Peter in an ITM saying how much he wants Maddie, and it's him with her forever.
Yeah.
And at this point, I'm thinking, okay, we're X amount of minutes in. And he just told us that he wants to be with Maddie. And yet the last we saw of Maddie, she was pretty checked out. And the last we saw of Hannah Ann, she's like, cool. They know I love him. Yep. We're good. We're going in.
Yep.
And
so we get a date time with Madison, which is okay. They go flying. How original. Did you know that Peter's a pilot and they like flying? So they fly to a big rock. It's apparently a spiritual thing, and people go there. Peter plays tour guide and just reads off information about the rock while Madison stares out the window.
It's so uncomfortable.
Clearly wishing she was not there.
It's so uncomfortable.
It's, like when you've seen people, like one person in relationships trying really, really hard and the other person clearly doesn't want to be there. That's what this is. It's so painful. He's just reading information about a rock. And she's like, wow, that's so cool. Dead response.
Yeah. So then they come down from the air and they have this weird small talk, which I think we've all experienced where like, you have to have a serious conversation with somebody. Oh, good. They're power washing our window right now. Cool. Okay. If you hear water, that's what's happening.
It's not raining really hard.
You guys, there's like an actual fire hose coming at our window right now in front of us.
Additionally, we've noticed recently that the seal on one of our windows isn't super tight, and I'm kind of wondering if the water's going to come through that.
Welcome to live entertainment, everyone.
Oh my God. All right, so they sit down, and he pops open some apple juice because she doesn't drink, apparently. Oh, yeah, no, water's coming through the window.
Oh.
Yeah, water's coming through our window.
Well, okay. Cool. Okay, live. Cool. I was going to say live television, but I guess if, we're not on your TV, it'd be like live computers, live YouTube. Okay, so it's fine. It's barely coming through. We'll get it afterwards. So Madison, they get through the small talk, and she says, as much as we want this, I don't know if we can give each other what we need. sometimes, this was so fucking profound.
Mm-hmm.
She says, sometimes being a great fighter or being a great warrior is knowing when to surrender. I think love does conquer all because I'm willing to walk away from you for you to get what you came here to find. I got more of a sight of life outside of this. I don't want you to feel like you need to change who you are for someone you want to be with. And I don't know that we're the best for each other. And I wanted to stand up and give her a standing ovation. I thought that this was such a beautiful expression of what his family was trying to say. And it was like, here's how you say it in a healthy way from Madison. And then here's the unhealthy version from his mom.
Yeah.
And it was the same message.
Yeah.
It's the same content. And it's just such a good reminder for all of us that how we deliver information, how we communicate our thoughts and feelings has a huge, huge impact on how it's received and how it turns out. Because they were really saying the same thing.
Mm-hmm. No.
Maddie was just kind and honestly, Ruby asks in the chat, how long did you rehearse it? It doesn't matter. I actually encourage people to rehearse things before they have to have a hard conversation because our emotions can flood our brain and we forget what we wanted to say. It's important. I thought that it was so beautiful what she did in this moment and how she articulated these differences. I really did.
Yeah, so she says all of that, and he immediately goes, well, how do you know that what I want is not you? How do you know that's not you? And my note is, she cites their massive differences, which she does. And he's still confused, somehow, about all of this.
Which, like, Peter, how are you still not getting this?
I wrote down, dude, you're not looking at the facts, when he was kind of teasing her about the sparkling apple cider. Like, dude, your brother said you like to go clubbing, and you like to go out and party, and you like to go drinking.
Line dancing.
And you're literally like, oh, apple juice for us. Look at the facts, man. She's not the same person that you want. Anyway.
And it's okay. Like,
which is fine.
Again, that is fine. And if Peter wanted that, that is fine.
Right. So the flies keep buzzing his face. And my note for that is the flies bothering Peter must be shouting, don't do it! The entire time. And that's someone's vacuuming. That's nice.
Good. Yeah.
Just working to all the sounds.
We're killing it.
That's good.
So then Madison leaves and he's crying in the desert and she says, I'm going to miss him every day. To walk away from someone you love, it's like the worst feeling in the world. Yeah. And yeah, it is. And honestly, to take a step away from something that you really care about because you know that it is best for you to do so is very challenging. Now, again, as we're recapping this, we're staying present in that moment, right? So what I'm saying does not have to do with how Madison then comes back.
In this moment, she handles it quite well, and her mourning the relationship on the car ride home is quite nice.
Yeah.
It's reflective, it's emotional, it's honest with herself.
Yeah.
About the realities. It's not blaming Peter, like so many other people have.
Yes.
She
speaks in first person. She speaks about how she is seeing things, how she's experiencing things. And it's not... I was very relieved to not hear her be like, well, you did this, so I'm out.
Yeah.
It was... I've had clarity around this, not to use the buzzword from Hannah season. I've had clarity around this, and that's it.
Yeah. So we get to commercial really fast, and we have Peter wake up and pout for the camera.
Why was he topless in bed for like a solid 60 seconds on my TV?
Why didn't we just sit on the side of the bed and just look down?
He was like...
I swear the camera guy was like, okay, so get up and then look sad. And then go to the window and stare pensively in the distance.
I was just about to say pensive stares.
So, blah, 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 he's sad. Chris shows up, and he's like, hey, you're sad. How do you feel? Are you able to get through this? And Peter's like, I didn't know how loving two people could go, and I wasn't really sure how to do. What?
Okay, so, one of our viewers in the chat, Bhakti, says, Peter starts using likes when he talks to Maddie, because Maddie says like a lot when she speaks, which some people do, whatever. Yeah. And Lucy said, Bhakti, this confirms Kyle's theory that Peter mirrors whoever he's with.
Right? Right? Isn't that weird? He does it to everybody.
And now
he's just so reflective. Which...
And yes, I agree, Heidi. Heidi says, I don't think Peter understands the true extent of the difference of their lifestyles and how much he would have to change.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, is that I understand that he thinks he's able to do something. The reality of it has not sunk in for him. I don't think he's truly seeing what that decision is.
And I also think, and I empathize with this, that many of us have been in dating relationships like that.
Yeah.
Where we are so either infatuated or in lust or in love with someone that we're like, no, this can work.
Yeah, and you don't
this
want to
is
see
great.
The truth.
You don't want to see what's right in front of you. And that's a very human thing. That,
well, and not even in relationships. People do that in many aspects, with various aspects. Think about people who stay in jobs too long when they're miserable.
Peter is Play-Doh.
I mean, yeah, he is. No,
he's super Play-Doh.
No, it's what is that?
Silly putty?
Yeah, silly putty, where you can stick it to a magazine and it'll pull off the exact
image.
Oh
yeah, I used to do that on newspapers.
Yeah, on newspapers.
Oh, I just dated myself. Okay.
So the Chris conversation is pointless with Peter. He's like, "Hey, are you sad?" Peter's like, "Yeah, I'm sad." Chris is like, "Do you think you can do it?" And Peter's like, "I don't know." And so he goes on a date with Hannah Ann. So he does know.
Yeah. There was...
it didn't make sense.
Okay, the only thing that I liked about this date was seeing baby kangaroos.
Okay, so what I think happened, is the Madison date happens, and Peter is spiraling, like he apparently was, and production's like, we need to save this person. He needs an emergency shot of serotonin in his brain. We need to pull him out of this slump, or he will not do what we need him to do for the rest of the show. He won't propose to anybody if he's miserable, so we have to make him happy. How do we make Peter happy? Baby animals.
I mean, how do we make anybody happy? Baby animals.
Absolutely.
That was the best part. They're cute little hands.
I stand on that this is a production move. I think they had a separate date planned, and they realized how miserable Peter was, and they had to do this
and how miserable we all were
just to make him happy enough to continue on with the show.
Truly, I don't know if I would have gotten through it without the baby kangaroos.
For real.
So I think they did it for us just as much as Peter.
And honestly, it's a fine date. We get a in-the-moment interview of Hannah Ann saying that, well, she tells him while they're on the date, she's happy not to put pressure on him. She's happy that she's able to put her guard down around him. She's basically telling him all the reasons why they're compatible, which is great. And we get an in-the-moment interview of her saying something's off. Yep. I can tell he's not there.
And in this moment, I started getting very... This was the moment that I started feeling... what's the word I want to use? Anger? I started feeling anger towards Peter at this moment. Yeah. In the chat here... Ruby says, this date triggered me. Peter didn't say a word about Maddie being self-eliminated. And I agree. That is what was horrifying to me.
Especially the nighttime portion.
Yes.
Which to me is where I got actually upset at Peter. So, you see Hannah Ann. She looks amazing.
Her body contrast, holy fuck. She looks great.
Stunning. And she's putting out production approved or production provided like chocolate covered strawberries and lighting candles and blah blah blah, talking about Peter, and he shows up in a hoodie and jeans to tell her that he is always going to be 100% honest with her while currently holding the truth from her,
while literally lying by omission.
Yes. And she is basically telling him how difficult it is for her to be there without getting some validation from him. She's asking for validation, and he's not giving it to her. Or telling her the truth.
Yeah.
So he's saying he's going to be honest while actively lying by omission, while someone is asking him for just a simple validation around their feelings together, and he's not capable of doing it.
Yeah, and it's like the worst parts of him. Peter has a lot of great qualities. He does. Yeah. His worst qualities were all like mushed together in this moment. And he did not respect Hannah Ann in this moment at all. He did that in the most outward way, by the way he was dressed.
Yeah.
There's a reason the first tweet that went up on Twitter about that went viral because so many women who experience or who are in or have dated a heterosexual dynamic have experienced that where they have gone to lengths to put in effort into what they're wearing, how they look, being blah, 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 blah. And then Peter shows up in fucking a hoodie.
Well,
then
go ahead.
Well, and then he is such a bad people pleaser that he cannot tell Hannah Ann what's going on. And it's wrong. In my opinion, it was wrong.
The way he carried himself on this portion of the date is fairly disrespectful. He says a lot of things that are really dumb. He says that she's always been a rock for him, and he's always seen her at the end. Great. None of this matters, because you're currently withholding information that would drastically change her experience on the show. Because if she knows she's the only one left, and he's acting like that, she knows he's not into her. He's withholding the information that would make her choose a separate thing for herself. I think that he knows if she knew all of this and he's still acting this way, she would leave on her own volition. So she hopes she's the one who loves him the most, and she loves how she is around him. She tells him she wants him to choose her for who she is, no other reason. And he heavy sighs in response and says it's been the hardest week of his life. And he vaguely mentions his heart is being pulled in two directions and kind of meanders around the conversation for a while. She begins crying and reflects that it hurts her to hear his heart is being pulled in two directions when she has shown up the way she has. And she says, you seem just not completely there like I am. Talking about in their relationship.
Which she is correct. He is literally thinking about someone else.
And then he delivers his, I'm going to be 100% honest with you while currently actively withholding information from you, which would change your dynamic on the show.
At this point,
her and then leaves.
I literally wrote down, I do not like this, and then tossed my phone down, and I was like, this is
As the episode ends,
bullshit.
We get a threatening message from Chris saying, that's not the last we've seen of Madison, dun dun dun, and then it's the end of the episode.
So let's just take a break to...
I'm going to hand my mic to you, and I need to lay down for a second.
This is what this season has done.
Oh my God, what the fuck?
While we're on our break, I just want to thank you all so much for consistently being our favorite part of doing the show.
Yeah.
The level of conversation, the dynamic between all of you, there are 119, now 116, the number goes up and down so quickly. There are 116 of you on right now. And thank you, each and every one of you, for being here. If you're watching this afterwards, thank you for watching. Our recaps go really in depth, and we talk about a lot of deeper shit. And that's why they're longer than some other recaps.
Yeah, for real.
And we are just so grateful for all of you. So please, if you are enjoying this, give the video a thumbs up on YouTube. If you're listening to this as a podcast, subscribe, rate, review. Make sure that you're subscribed to both the YouTube channel and the podcast. If we are able to get ex-contestants onto the show, we're not able to do it live, which means that we have to publish it just as a podcast.
Yep.
So make sure that you're also subscribed to the podcast, even if you're a YouTube live person. And please make sure to hit that thumbs up button on this video. We cannot tell you how much that helps us. It's like donating $1. Like it's really like if everybody hits that button, it tells YouTube people actually want to see this, and it bumps up the video, and it helps us more than we could ever even express. So thank you for being here. Thank you for engaging. Thank you for having these conversations and for disagreeing with each other and still being kind. Thank you for just
everything.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So we love you guys. That's all I wanted to say in the break between episodes.
Thanks for letting me stretch. So, okay, let's just kick this thing off. We start the finale, episode 2. Chris explains what's going on. Kelly's in the audience for some reason. I think they needed to show that she was still welcome in the franchise in some format, because she didn't come to Women Tell All, and I was still curious about that. At that point, because she didn't show up to Women Tell All, I was suspecting that she and Peter got together, which would make me happy, but that didn't happen, so I'm sad. So, this is the painful part. This beginning of this episode was really painful. We had friends over, and they made dinner, And this immediately killed my mood for the entire show. Obviously, I had fun.
Yeah, my
watching
turn to lay down for a second.
But this started out in a way that made me very sad for the rest of the show, and also for Hannah Ann, and frustrated that this is where we're left at the finale. Peter has now convinced himself that he loves Hannah Ann and wants to be with her. And the way he carries himself during this first 10 minutes of the episode is so disturbing for me, because he is playing with someone's emotions in life in a way that is inauthentic. He is literally, I've seen this so many times in various aspects of life, when someone doesn't want to do something, and they've had to convince themselves to do it, and to find the positive in it. And you see this part of him where he's like, I'm so happy, this is what happiness is, right? I'm happy because I'm making the decision that's a happy one. Happy! He just keeps faking it. And he's not a good liar. I'm not a good liar. And I can see it when someone else is bad at lying also. And it's so evident in his eyes that he is not happy. He's doing all the other things that say happiness. He's waving his arms. He's smiling a lot. His eyebrows keep moving. But his eyes aren't happy the entire time. And it's so troubling that this person who has literally stated and been truthful to her statement that she has been there every step of the way, supportive, rock, she's not being pushy, she's not holding anything, she is just there, loving him.
And not in a pushover way.
Yeah, she has just been there as herself, being herself, working through her own challenges with him, and he is just pulling her down with him. He FaceTimes Hannah Ann's dad and gets permission to marry her. He's like, oh, I'm so excited now, this is what happiness is, right?
Which literally watching it, so obviously no one knew how it was going to play out. There were no spoilers. We were not spoiled.
No.
Watching him...
He was acting, J. Jobs. Not well.
Yeah, and not to... Like, he was acting to convince himself.
Yeah, that's the part.
That's the thing, is I don't think that he was acting for us.
That's why I use the word disturbing. Like, because he's trying to force himself to do something. Now, if you don't want to go to work one day and you have to force yourself to go to work and you're like, it's going to be okay, it's going to be 5 hours, I'm going to get in, it's going to be fine, I'm happy, whatever, I'll be a dick, that's fine. This is a proposal. This is a televised, recorded, permanent decision that influences and completely demands someone else's involvement. This is not a decision for him. This is a decision for many people all at once, and it's a selfish one. So
the fact that we were, I think, like 10 minutes into the episode and he's FaceTiming Hannah Ann's dad, I looked at Kyle and I was like, this is going to be fucked.
Yeah, this is a fucking nightmare.
Like, this is,
more wine out.
So there was a large consensus in our home. So we had about
7 people.
We had 7 people watching the show, which we don't typically do because people like to talk. However,
we needed community for this finale.
We needed support from other people to get through this. And there was a very big consensus in our home. I would love to hear what you all thought. The consensus was no pear-shaped diamonds. They were very passionate about this. God, granted, there were a lot of people over who did not watch The Bachelor, and so their commentary was very, like, not about the nuance of what was going on, but they were like, oh, why did he pick that one? We're like, yeah, that's not really the point here, but okay.
Yeah, speaking of voiceover, Hannah Ann talking that she's exhausted. She wants to tap out and put her guard up because she's at her breaking point for no validation. She has not gotten what she's been asking for this entire time, and she's troubled. Chris comes up to the this right here is fucked up, and I hold the production and Chris accountable and responsible for this one. Chris goes up to Peter and says, we don't know if Hannah Ann's going to come, buddy. Yes, they did. And yes, she did. They did that purely to fuck with him.
And he said, I hate to darken the mood. There's something I just found out. Something I just found out about Hannah Ann. Even that phrasing. I'm like, fuck you, Chris Harrison. Like, I know that you're an executive producer, and I know you're trying to make good TV, but literally, fuck you, Chris Harrison.
Right.
That was so... And then he says, I'm not sure she's coming. And Peter says, does she know that Madison is not here? Which, why
would you say that?
How would she know that?
Yeah, I wrote
you did not tell her.
Yeah, I wrote in all caps, DB didn't tell her.
And all Chris Harrison says is, no. And then Pete says, I feel like I'm going to pass out right now. Then we cut to a commercial. Then we come back. Peter's laying down on the bed. And then Chris Harrison goes, hey, I just found out she's coming.
She was always coming.
She was always... Throw my microphone out this wet, dripping window in front of me.
Yeah, I'm wondering about that. I think, is the water coming from the ceiling?
Guys, they started our season with that clip of him saying, I have something to tell you.
And
it was 100% manufactured.
So this is my issue. They're so desperate for drama on the show, and when it doesn't manufacture itself, they have to manufacture it. And so they got lucky with Hannah Brown because they had Luke P being insane the entire time to the point of showing up to the rose ceremony and moving a podium around. Like, the contestants created the drama last season. On this season, the contestants are not creating drama because the lead sucks.
Well, they did create drama earlier. Earlier
they did, but at this point, there's no drama because Madison has pieced out because she knows she's not right for him. Hannah Ann is exhausted because she's never gotten validation, and Peter's so wishy-washy in the situation that he's not able to do anything. So the production's like, well, we're not going to have drama, so...
let's create it. And yes, you all are saying very similar things in the chat right now, which is like, does he know that I don't have a backup girlfriend? Does she know she's winning by default? Like, yeah. And if you all have not read the book Bachelor Nation by Amy Kaufman, I highly encourage you to read it.
Oh, it's amazing.
She talks a lot about what production can and can't do to manipulate things, and I think it's really important because blanket statements of like, this show is all scripted, or everything is manufactured, or it's all manipulated. It's not an all or nothing thing. And I think it's really important to read it. It's a great book. Highly, highly, highly recommend it.
So Hannah shows up. She looks miserable. Peter looks miserable.
And yes, Peter is the worst lead.
Yeah.
I think not the worst person. Juan Pablo probably takes that.
Yeah, no, he's
But by far, Peter is the worst lead.
He's the worst functional adult lead, because I wouldn't say Juan Pablo is really a functional adult in society.
I don't know.
So anyway, she comes up to the proposal spot, and you know how Peter starts this magical moment that's supposed to be the best day of their lives?
Oh, I have the proposal.
He heavy sighs.
Yeah.
He heavy sighs to start, which is not a great way of starting the proposal, if I'm being perfectly honest.
So I have the proposal here. Okay.
You wrote it out?
I got a screenshot. Somebody else did, and then posted it.
And the commas used in that screenshot are perfect. Okay, go.
Okay.
There you go. Oh my God.
Do you want to read it, or do you want me to?
I don't know.
Okay, I'll read it. So, he says, I have to follow my heart. So, Madison. She actually left 2 days ago. Hannah Ann. Your beautiful spirit is honestly unlike I've ever seen before. You're thoughtful, caring, selfless, passionate, and above all else, you're one of a kind, and my heart chooses you forever. I love you, Hannah Ann, and the love you've shown me is all I ever wanted, and I never want to let you go. Hannah Ann, will you marry me?
So, first of all, we've all seen Friends by this point. Saying another woman's name that you've been involved with when you're proposing, pretty much a no-go. Like, that's it. We've all seen that. Not a good run. Especially when you say it in a way that makes it sound like you're speaking to Madison. So, Madison went home. He didn't say she sent herself home, also.
Yeah.
Hannah Ann had to watch herself be proposed to on camera, knowing that he is withholding information that would drastically have changed her experience. I can't imagine how painful this was. I wrote down, I am so worried because this is so early in the episode.
Yep. Her response was, you love me? I can't believe you're all
brutal.
Mine. And my heart was like, I wrote down, this is not happy. There are 90 minutes left. So then we cut to a commercial. That was awful to watch. I don't know. I would love to know how you all experienced this. I know there's a couple people in the chat bringing up the Hannah Brown thing. We will absolutely talk about that when we get to that after the final rose. So we come back from commercial, and it is Pete's family. And he goes to tell them who, and he is intentionally being vague. He's like, so, I'm engaged. It was great.
We're happy, but...
No.
Obviously, the producers told them to not say who it was until the very end. Fuck with his family to get the most screen time, blah, 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 blah. Stupid.
So, then, he tells them who it is.
And the mom
freaks out and says, I can't wait to see my daughter.
And she continues to refer to her specifically as her daughter, always.
My heart was so hurting for Hannah Ann in this.
Yeah.
Because at this point, she doesn't know Maddie sent herself home. She doesn't know that Peter is clearly still hung up on Maddie. And she doesn't know how the family visit went before. So all she's experiencing is this guy that I fell in love with finally told me he loves me back. He wants to get married, and his family's so excited.
Yeah.
And there's so much dysfunction underneath that.
Yeah.
And it was just... Ugh.
So, they FaceTime with Hannah. Barb calls her daughter a couple more times. It's a little strange. Then everyone hugs. But the problem is, we know that's not it. That's not the ending. We're watching a false happy ending. We get to studio, and Peter comes out, and there's a tepid response.
Yeah.
Peter talks about how happy everything was.
He says that was an amazing day.
Yep. And Chris asks if he was able to move on from the Madison breakup. And we cut to commercial.
And when we come back from commercial, it is Hannah Ann coming to visit Peter in LA. And this is when we start to get the Barb frame in the lower left while we're watching this. And I was getting serious flashbacks to the first time we had any sort of live watching, which was Rachel Lindsay's season. Then I was getting flashbacks to Ari's season for obvious reasons, I think. And they sit down together. And it apparently had been a month since they had seen each other.
Which immediately was a
red flag.
A red flag, because usually the contestants have, like, they see each other like every other week, and they have disguises, and they kind of sneak around, they have all these trips planned by the production. They spend time together, but they haven't seen each other for a month, and it's strained. It's very strained. We find out later in the episode that before this meeting, Peter had told her, basically, that he can't do this. He's not interested in her this way. And so when she shows up, she's like, so what the fuck are you doing? What's happening?
So she starts crying, and this is the exact quote from Peter. Oh, God. Okay, quote. You know I've been honest with you about everything, you know. I've fallen in love with you, and I love you. So there's no doubt about that. For so many reasons. I'm just, like, struggling, you know?
Yep.
And she says, I know. And she says to him, when I said yes to you, I said yes to a partnership. I would stay by your side, even if it killed me, but it has to be 50-50. And he says, listen, I never intended to give my heart to two people. And he basically tells her that he can't do it. He can't be with her. And she's crying. She says, I have to go to the bathroom. We cut to a commercial. We come straight back. Getting serious Becca Ari vibes.
What we didn't see during the bathroom break is that Hannah Ann goes in there and pops open a can of whoop ass and comes right back out and tells him...
Well, not back out. He comes into the bathroom.
You come to the bathroom?
Yeah, because she's by the sink.
Oh.
During that conversation.
Because he can't let anything lie, which is why he's chased down every woman who walked away from him the entire season, because he's uncomfortable not being able to tell someone how he's feeling. So,
oh my God. Paya says, Hannah said on the Happy Hour podcast, by the way, we don't listen to any podcasts before we record, so thank you for this. Hannah said on the Happy Hour podcast that they talked before the breakup, and he said that he wasn't going to break up with her. So she was fully blindsided.
So she tells him, you've taken my first engagement from me. You have taken this from me. And that is so brutal.
Yeah.
And it's so good. And it's so honest. And in this moment, there's been plenty of criticism around Hannah Ann for being overly rehearsed or not able to emotionally connect or whatever. She debunked all of that moving forward.
Yeah.
She's like, dude, you've got to be serious. So she said she trusted him, that she was always there, she was his rock, and you did this to me. We cut to studio, and it's silent in studio.
Yeah.
Absolutely silent.
And Pete says, I'm so sorry. This is never, ever, ever what I envisioned ever. And she says, imagine me. And I was like, pew, pew, pew. It was so good. And then he says, I've not been able to give you my whole heart, and you know why that is. Which, like, ugh.
So he says, I never saw this happening. She says, then why is it happening?
Yeah. Then why is it happening now? And she's like ready to go. And he's like, I will talk to you. I will talk to you. I know you're leaving, but... And she basically cuts him off and says...
I wrote the quote down. Did you get the quote down?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Peter, your words can't be true. You can't be true to your words, so why would I hear them anymore?
I don't need anything more from you. You've done enough damage. I'm done. Here you go. Here's this. I mean that. And hands the ring back to him.
It was so good.
So Barb applauds. I applauded. It was a very cathartic moment where you're like, dude, you disrespected this woman, and she is more or less throwing the engagement ring at you.
I thought that she handled this so well.
Oh, phenomenally well.
Peter could not have handled this whole thing worse.
Absolutely.
He was dishonest about how he felt from before the proposal until apparently right then. J. Jobs asks, where was this Hannah Ann the rest of the season? I think that we saw somewhat of an evolution with her, similar to what we did with Hannah B on Colton's season.
Absolutely.
Remember at the beginning of Colton's season, Hannah Brown could not make a toast.
Yeah, she couldn't talk.
And then we watched her evolve.
Yeah.
And I truly think that this show, because of the emotional incubator that this show is, it forces people, it cracks people open, for better or worse.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Hannah Ann got a shitty situation happening to her. However, I really think that if she can go to therapy and process through this and make it something that she has conquered through and felt through, that she will be stronger, even more confident, even more articulate. It was so great. It was so great. And I just wish her every good thing in the world. And yeah, like this finale made us care about her.
Absolutely.
I don't think many of us really cared.
Yeah.
It was great.
She's leaving, she's saying out loud to him and herself, I need to get my life back on track. I've been my own rock through all of this. He tries to talk to her when she gets in the car, and she just holds her hand up to his face and just says no. And then she leaves. And then Chris asks Peter what he's thinking when they're in studio. And Peter says he feels bad, and it really tore his heart to hear that. Okay, I mean, Chris then asks him, is Madison the reason that happened? And Peter he says yes and no, and doesn't really answer, because he can't really stand up for how he feels, which is frustrating. So,
forgot to mention that Barb was literally cheering Hannah Ann on in the corner, which
the entire time.
In that moment was fine, minus the fact that she was horrible the rest of this after the final rose. So Hannah Ann is about to join Peter up on stage.
She does. There's tons of cheering.
Yep.
Fan
she
favorite.
looks lovely. His mom, Barb, is very, very excited. She says that she felt blindsided.
I got some quotes from her for this.
Go for it. I have some too.
She says, so many things you said that were bad. You don't understand what you say or the impact of your words. You knew how serious I was, and you knew how serious I was about this. You told me you wish we had met off the show, but you signed up to do this. You told me so many things that made me feel like we were in this together. I never felt a love in my life the way you showed me, or like the way we had love together. He says he wasn't really sure how much to share about his struggles with her on the show, and she calls him out and says he downplayed his feelings for Madison, and that when she left, that she had left and left him kind of without an option for the proposal, and he sort of deferred to her, and she had no idea what she was saying yes to because she didn't have all the information. She had no idea Madison left on her volition. So she says, that's called being blindsided, Peter. I didn't know what I was saying yes to when you proposed because you didn't tell me the truth.
Correct.
And he stumbles over an apology, an explanation. Bro, you had 2 days to come up with something to say, and you didn't come up with a better response.
Yeah. Yep. Just a couple things before we continue with the recap in the chat that I want to address. We have a comment that says, she won't need therapy, she'll be fine. I just wanted to clarify, I believe that everyone benefits from therapy.
Oh, yeah.
And especially when we've gone through something traumatic, we cannot process that without speaking it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
That it is important for the healing process to talk it out.
Yeah.
So the reason why I say that is because therapy is a great container to process that through and come out the other side with incredible understanding and coping skills.
Resolution, too,
around
what happened.
Absolutely.
So,
and then Paya says, the conspiracy theory about Jason Mesnick's season being the only Bachelor season on Netflix because his ending was like this turned out to be true.
That's a pretty good conspiracy theory.
I did not hear that, and that is amazing.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's incredible.
So we get back to Peter fumbling over a response, and then Hannah gives him no quarter and continues lambasting him on camera, and that's the word I'm used to using this. He keeps fumbling a response, and then all of a sudden, she says, you needed closure with Madison before this happened. You needed closure with Hannah B. And all of a sudden, we all put our phones down
for
the show, and we're like, wait, what?
And then our friends who were over who hadn't watched the show were like, who's Hannah B? They were so into it at this point, they didn't know who that was, so we had to explain.
Hannah Ann goes, our engagement involved 3 women. It's
Erica in the chat says she thinks she needs therapy after watching the season.
I'm right there with you. We cut to commercial after hearing from Hannah Ann that Peter needed to talk to Hannah Brown about getting closure after the show had ended. And so Hannah Ann's like, the fact that she said our engagement involved 3 women is probably the best mic drop as to why she's not into him. It was amazing.
I need tea around this. Like, does anyone know what happened?
Yeah, I need to know why he was talking to Hannah Brown.
Also, out of all of the things for Chris Harrison to not push,
I know.
Really, you're not going to ask the follow-up question? We're all like, hello,
the one thing you want to hear about.
Yeah.
So,
and there are almost 200 of you here with us live.
Amazing.
I just want to acknowledge that. Hi, welcome. If this is your first time, be sure to click the thumbs up button. And we're so happy that you're here. So thank you.
So we get back to the studio, and Peter says, I'll always be sorry for how I acted. Okay, sure. Then Chris has to hype the show, and he says, I wrote down, Chris says some weird shit about how we don't know what's going to happen yet. What? So it turns out, Chris says...
Sorry, guys. I'll be right back. I'm just getting a cough up.
Chris tells Peter he has something to tell him. Peter needs to know something from Chris. And Peter's like, what is it? Chris, unbeknownst to Peter, went to Auburn, Alabama, and sat down with Maddie and basically asked her how she's doing and if she's still in love with Peter. She says she's sad about the past. She can't really let go of it. She's still thinking a lot about it. She admits she would do things differently if given a chance. And asks what happened. Chris tells her he got engaged. Chris tells Madison Peter has no idea he's there, and that Peter is single and had ended his engagement with Hannah Ann. So Madison's happy and sad all at once. Chris asks if she's in love, and she says her feelings haven't gone away, but she doesn't know where he's at. Here's the problem. If her conviction around her values and morals in life was so strong she walked off the show, her going back on it now is not a good look. Because this holds to my theory that it's the timing around when he had sex with someone else that she's not okay with. If it had been like the required 90 days for her to be okay with it, like no sex for 90 days, or whatever her distance that she needed for her partner being intimate with somebody else, which she said she understands, that's what happened. But the way she ended the show, it makes this feel really inauthentic. Like, I don't know. I was pretty unsatisfied with this part of the show.
I agree with you. And to add to what you're saying, our chat is filling us in on some information that we don't have yet because we haven't listened to anything. Lucy says the Hannahs are really chummy. So the Hannahs have all kind of teamed up.
Wait, Hannah G, Hannah Brown, and Hannah Ann?
Yes.
That's amazing.
And apparently Reality Steve reported that Peter has been sleeping with multiple women over the past few months. Which would mean...
acting out.
But how much time... Okay, so this is what was frustrating, too, about this finale, and why, to me, it also felt unresolved, was we didn't get an accurate timeline. Like, how... What?
Yeah. We don't know.
I just have so many questions. Like, how long were Hannah Ann and Peter engaged? How long between the time that Hannah Ann and Peter broke off their engagement and then Maddie came back into the picture?
Right.
How long has he been seeing Maddie? Was the time that Peter's sleeping with other people in between the two? Or was it while he may have been seeing Maddie? Like, this is all... Give us a time frame, Chris Harrison!
Yeah, so Peter's watching all of this, and he looks hopeful. Madison looks hopeful. The mom looks miserable. Barb looks real angry. Hannah Ann looks furious in the thumbnail we get of her, which is very understandable.
Which, yeah.
So, Chris says, pack a bag if you want to be with Peter, and she's like, all right, oh, cool. So, Madison goes to LA, and Peter's standing dramatically by a pool, all alone, staring pensively off in the distance. And she walks out, and he's like, what are you doing here? I'm so surprised. No, you're not.
Oh, my God.
Production came to your house with a camera and told you to stand by the pool, and someone's going to come talk to you. Who the fuck do you think it was going to be?
Correct.
Stupid.
Also, people literally are giving us dates. So, apparently, Peter and Hannah Ann broke up at the end of January. Chris showed up to Maddie's hometown February 11th. However... There's also speculation that Maddie was at Peter's friend's baby shower on February 2nd. Interesting. Okay. So that's fascinating. It just, it sucked that Maddie provided an ultimatum of sorts.
Yeah.
And then seemingly, from what we saw as viewers, decided against that.
Right.
And came back. And
that's making such a big deal.
Correct. And like the whole, if she hadn't have left, I do believe he would have chose her.
Yeah. Yes.
So while Peter is 100% responsible, the fact that that happened then also had this massive effect on Hannah Ann.
Yep.
And at this point, the parents are getting very, and we're going to wrap up soon because I know we are almost at 2 hours, which is a very long time. So, we start seeing Peter's parents now talking to Chris. And it's pretty bad. Everything that his mom was saying was not great. Truly, like, I became a little bit speechless watching it. I want to sit them down in family therapy.
Yeah.
The dad seemingly could not speak up for himself. And when she whispered to him in Spanish, what she was saying was something along the lines of, say something bad, like, I need help. Help me. So
that's all. So they bring Madison back to the stage. They're a little confused, but I wrote down her hair is too long. It was really strangely long.
We don't comment on people's appearances on their show.
Her hair was very long. So the mom looks furious. Madison talks about how she struggled with hearing what was going on, and Chris reiterates to everybody that no one knows what's going to happen now, which, Turns out that Madison and Peter have been texting each other, or talking on the phone or something, over the past couple of weeks, and have been communicating. So they do know what's going to happen. They have had conversations that we are not privy to, or what they really said about it. So Peter admits, that they've been hurt by each other, they've hurt each other, they've hurt whatever, and they're trying to figure things out. He admits he's made so many mistakes as the Bachelor, and then Chris is like, well, do you want to give this a shot? And he says, I want to take this one day at a time. And frankly, Madison looked pretty pissed off in that moment.
She's
did. Like, dude, are you serious? By the way, Neil Lane is in the audience with a briefcase. It is my belief that they legit had rings ready to go for a proposal, and Peter didn't do it, and that's why Madison's like, hold on. Are you literally saying you want to take this one day at a time after we've been talking for X amount of weeks over the phone, and I'm here now, and we're saying we're in love? Like, I think that's what was supposed to happen. That's why Neil Lane had a briefcase that he held up, by the way, when we got the can shot at him. So
that's true.
That was my theory, that there were rings in that briefcase ready to go for Peter to propose to, and he chose not to, and that's why Madison looked kind of pissed.
Now, I will say, I enjoyed the fact that Peter stood up to his family. I do not agree with what Peter did at all.
Yeah.
And the way that he responded to them, I thought was actually quite appropriate.
Right. I think that what he said was not... The way he did it was good, I think, but some of the content where he's like, we're just going to have to face this uphill battle one day at a time, and it's going to be painful. He basically listed that it's going to be really challenging and they have a lot of work to do because they're in a bad place, but also kind of asking for support while not actually doing it. And his family was just kind of dumpstering on him. And my problem with the finale is supposed to be a succinct ending to a storytelling, right? That's the point of a finale. That's the ending of a trilogy or anything. Any ending, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's finale. We just saw Peter argue with his family, and then everyone's unhappy, including Madison, and the show ends.
Yeah.
Because the content doesn't matter.
And then they bring out Claire.
Yeah, no matter what they said in the end. Peter's like, I like her, it's going to be hard, and the family's like, we don't like any of this. And Peter's like, well, I don't like this. And Madison just looks pissed, and Chris is like, well, okay, that's the show. We're done.
It was the most unresolved finale I've ever... And not unresolved in the way that, like, nobody got... Wait, what?
This is second only to the Game of Thrones finale. Which is the most...
A scripted show! A scripted show!
Frankly, I was saying this last night, that this show is perfectly... This one season of The Bachelor is a perfect analogy for the Game of Thrones series. And if you haven't seen it at this point, that's your own fault.
I'm dead.
It was interesting at the beginning. There's a lot of characters introduced. There's a lot of drama. People came and went in weird ways that we weren't expecting. And then all of a sudden it ends in the most unsatisfying way when we were told the entire season that the ending is going to be fucking crazy. It was like, everyone's unhappy and we're done. That was the end of Game of Thrones, and that was the end of The Bachelor with Peter.
You know, Kyle, you are not wrong.
Everyone's unhappy. The show's over.
That's going to be the name of this
Everyone's
podcast,
happy. The
actually.
show's over.
Everyone's happy. Or no, everyone's unhappy. The show is over.
Yeah. Yep. So that's it. That's the end. Claire Carly comes out and says some stuff. I didn't pay attention to it.
No, because we were so wrapped up in... I was like, we'll see you next season.
Yeah, who cares? It doesn't matter. She just said she's ready a bunch and some things and...
So if you all have any questions that you want to continue to discuss about this, please DM them to us. You can email us, therightreasons@gmail.com.
Yeah.
We're going to do one podcast mailbag episode. We've been collecting all your questions that you've been emailing in, and we will totally answer them, but just out of respect of your time. We're almost at 2 hours. So we are so glad that this season is over.
So glad.
Honestly, not because, I'm sad that we're not going to do this every week.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I don't have to watch Peter every week now.
Yeah.
We are not going to be recapping Listen to Your Heart.
Just, we're already doing Summer Games. We're doing Bachelor in Paradise. Listen to Your Heart, to me, I don't need to see Jed the show.
Correct.
And honestly, I don't give a shit about country pop. And being forced to showcase all of it as people navigate relationship, I pass on this clusterfuck.
So just for our sanity and well-being, we're not gonna do that, but we will be doing Bachelorette, Bachelor in Paradise, and Summer Games.
Yep.
So fear not, we are not going anywhere.
Question about Love Is Blind: do you think that guy Victoria X is gonna make a cameo on it?
That'd be so funny,
right? We're not gonna recap it, but I put a bet in now. I think that they're going to have, what is it, Chase Rice? Chase Rice? Is that his name? Right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I think that he's going to have a cameo on Listen to Your Heart. If anything, the show has been created to apologize to him for being in this season.
Maybe.
Fucking nightmare.
So, thank you so much again for
Yeah.
being here with us, for being a listener, a viewer, whichever way that you watch or listen to this show. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. We are still around in the off season.
Oh,
Come
yeah.
hang out with us on our personal Instagrams. They're in the description below.
Yep, check it out.
And we just love you all so much.
Oh, Carla, quick clarification. Jed's not in Listen to Your Heart.
I mean, you may be.
I'm basically calling it that because the show got tired of people coming on there to promote their music career. So they basically made a show for musicians to promote their music careers and then also somehow fall in love simultaneously because that's the stuff love songs are made out of, I guess. Yeah. You didn't see that coming, did you?
Thank you,
right.
thank you, thank you.
What
We
the
love you
fuck?
guys so dearly. And like the video, yes, J-Jobs, please, there's a thumbs up underneath this video. Click it. If you've been here with us,
Thank you.
you are all the best.
Oh, thank you for the season.
Thank you for being what made this season palpable for
Oh, yeah.
for us.
Palatable, even.
Yeah, thank you. That's actually what I meant.
Well, palpable, I mean, yeah, it doesn't really make sense.
I am
I didn't
so
intend to
tired
correct you,
from
but-
this show. No, I appreciate the correction.
Yeah, I mean, who knows where we'll be recording this next?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe it'll be in the living room.
Who
Maybe
knows?
it'll be somewhere else.
And the last comment that I'm going to lead on is from Ruby that says, Jed just has to dump his girlfriend to go on Listen to Your Heart.
Does he, though? Does he?
Bye, friends.
Bye-bye, everybody.
We'll see you on Instagram in the off season, and we'll see you during Bachelorette. Bye.
Bye-bye.